We live in an age where your attention is the most valuable currency on earth, yet it is being mined, auctioned, and fragmented by forces you can barely see. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the ground, your mind is already being pulled in a dozen different directions. There is the persistent low-level hum of anxiety regarding your career, the invisible weight of social expectation, and the sudden, sharp stabs of irritation when things do not go exactly according to your design. You feel as though you are constantly reacting, constantly defending your peace, and constantly running to catch up with a world that seems determined to keep you off balance. This is not merely a modern inconvenience, it is a profound misalignment of the soul. You are living as a spectator to your own life, buffeted by external events that you have no power to change, while the one thing you actually possess, your own mind, remains neglected, undisciplined, and effectively colonized by the chaos around you. Most people attempt to solve this by seeking a better life hack, a new productivity app, or a temporary escape from their circumstances. They look for comfort, hoping that if they can just arrange their environment perfectly, their mind will finally settle. But this is a fundamental error. Comfort is a sedative, not a solution. The frustration you feel is not a symptom of an external problem. It is the natural consequence of a mind that has not yet learned how to govern itself. You are suffering because you are trying to control the uncontrollable, while abandoning the only terrain where you truly have absolute authority. What if I told you that there is a way to become utterly immune to the volatility of your environment? What if you could stand in the eye of any storm, perfectly calm, not because the storm has passed, but because you have fundamentally altered your relationship to it? This is not a modern psychological trick or a fleeting self-help trend. It is a 2,000-year-old framework of iron-willed resilience, a secret weapon wielded by emperors, slaves, and merchants alike to master their own psychology in an unpredictable world. These are not mere opinions or speculative theories. They are the distilled, battle-tested principles of Stoicism. They have been refined through centuries of turmoil, and they remain the most potent toolset ever devised for the man or woman who refuses to be a victim of their own impulses. To master your mind, you must first acknowledge a brutal truth. Most of your suffering is self-inflicted. It arises from the persistent refusal to accept the dichotomy of control. Imagine for a moment that your life is a battlefield. You are standing in the center, and around you, chaos is unfolding. There are things happening that you would never have chosen. The economic shifts, the insults of a colleague, the aging of your body, the betrayal of a friend. These are external events. They are moving forward with their own momentum, indifferent to your desires. The vast majority of people spend their entire lives throwing themselves against these external realities, screaming for them to be different, and exhausting their energy in a war they can never win. They are tethered to the outcome of things they do not control, and in doing so, they hand the keys to their emotional life over to the very people and circumstances that wish them harm or indifference. The Stoic begins by drawing a line in the sand. On one side are the externals, reputation, wealth, the opinions of others, the past, the future, and the actions of everyone else. These are the things you must learn to view with total, clinical detachment. When you realize that these things are ultimately outside of your power, you stop begging them for validation, you stop fearing them, and you stop craving them. On the other side of that line is the only thing that truly belongs to you, your faculty of judgment. Your opinion about what is happening, your choice of how to respond, and the integrity of your own character. When you shift your focus entirely to this internal fortress, the world loses its power to wound you. A man who understands that his peace of mind is not dependent on the applause of the crowd is a man who can no longer be blackmailed by society. A woman who knows that her worth is determined by her own actions, not by the fickle judgment of her peers, is a woman who has achieved a kind of radical, unshakable freedom. This brings us to the necessity of strategic silence and the power of disappearing. In our current era, we are conditioned to believe that to exist is to be seen, to be heard, and to be constantly broadcasting our intentions. We feel that if we are not commenting on the world, we are falling behind. We feel that if we are not sharing our plans, they are not real. But there is an immense, almost dangerous power in retreating from the noise. The most disciplined minds in history understood that the public sphere is a marketplace of vanity and distraction. To constantly seek external feedback is to subject your own purpose to the whims of the mediocre. When you keep your plans secret, you are doing more than just protecting your ideas from sabotage. You are protecting your own resolve from the dilution of premature praise or premature criticism. There is a profound biological and psychological shift that occurs when you learn to operate in silence. You stop needing the fuel of public validation, which means you stop needing to shape your actions to please the audience. You become driven by an internal standard that no one else can see, and therefore no one else can touch. This is what it means to be truly sovereign. When you step back from the limelight, you are not disappearing, you are concentrating. You are focusing all of your resources, all of your intellect, and all of your willpower into a single sharp point. Consider the discipline required to maintain this trajectory when the world is screaming for your attention. Radical self-discipline is not about punishing yourself. It is about the conquest of your lower nature. Every time you delay gratification, you are signaling to your mind that you are the master, not the servant. When you feel the pull of comfort, and you choose the path of labor instead, you are reinforcing the structure of your own character. It is an act of defiance against the instinct for ease. Most people are governed by their immediate impulses. The desire for a quick fix, the need to avoid discomfort, the urge to lash out when offended. They are like ships without rudders, turning with every gust of wind. The Stoic, however, is a ship with a deep, heavy keel. Even when the surface of the water is turbulent, the vessel remains upright because it is anchored in a deep, immovable commitment to its own integrity. This path requires a complete shift in how you view adversity. You have been taught to see obstacles as things to be avoided or overcome with resentment. You ask, "Why is this happening to me?" And that question alone keeps you trapped in the victim mindset. The Stoic asks, "What can I do with this?" They recognize that every negative event, every setback, and every challenge is actually the raw material for their own transformation. If you encounter a critic, you have an opportunity to practice patience and objectivity. If you lose an opportunity, you have an opportunity to practice detachment and to find new, more creative paths forward. This is the essence of amor fati, not merely accepting your fate, but loving it. Not because it is pleasant, but because it is the necessary fire that forges your spirit. If you treat every obstacle as an unwelcome intruder, you will spend your life frustrated. If you treat every obstacle as a mandatory training session, you will spend your life growing. Immunity to criticism is the final wall in the fortress of the mind. How many times have you held back from a project because you feared what others might think? How many times have you compromised your own ethics because you wanted to fit in? The opinion of the masses is like the weather. It changes constantly, it is influenced by things you cannot see, and it is entirely beyond your control. To be moved by it is to be a slave. A person of true character holds their own internal compass as the only metric of success. If you know that you have acted with virtue, with justice, and with foresight, then the praise of 1,000 people adds nothing to your value, and the condemnation of 1,000 people takes nothing away. This is not arrogance. It is the ultimate form of humility. It is admitting that you do not know the hearts or the motives of others, just as they do not know yours. You are responsible only for the quality of your own soul. As you begin to distance yourself from the chaotic impulses of the world, you will start to notice a profound silence inside you. It is not an empty silence, but a heavy, productive one. It is the silence of someone who is no longer busy trying to prove their worth to people who do not care. You will start to see the world with a terrifying degree of clarity. You will look at your own habits, your own triggers, and your own fears, and you will see them as they are, stripped of the melodrama you used to attach to them. This is the moment you begin to reclaim your agency. You realize that you have been wasting your precious, limited time on Earth, playing a game designed by people who do not have your best interests at heart. There is a weight to this realization, but it is a liberating weight. When you stop chasing the approval of the world, you are finally free to serve your own purpose. You are finally free to act with a level of focus and intensity that is impossible for those who are still seeking validation. This is the bridge between being a person who is constantly acted upon and a person who acts. It is the transition from a state of reactive anxiety to a state of proactive power. You are no longer waiting for the right conditions to improve your life. You have realized that the conditions are irrelevant, and the work of mastery begins right here, in the middle of whatever mess you find yourself in. Now that you have begun to strip away the illusions of the outside world, you must prepare for the deeper, more demanding phase of this transformation. Many people reach this point and stop, satisfied with the intellectual realization that they could be masters of their own minds. But knowing is not being. The true work lies in the daily, grinding application of these principles, in the moments when you are most tired, most provoked, and most tempted to return to your old, reactive patterns. This is where the philosophy ceases to be a set of ideals and becomes the very architecture of your existence. Consider the role of emotional regulation in the heat of a crisis. When an emergency strikes, or when someone attacks your character, your biology is designed to hijack your rational mind. Your heart rate quickens, your breathing shallows, and your impulse is to strike back or retreat into a state of panic. This is the primitive survival mechanism at work. It is, quite literally, your mind failing to govern itself. The Stoic, however, treats this physiological surge as a mere signal, a biological suggestion that does not require obedience. When you feel that spike of anger or fear, you must practice a calculated pause. It is in this microsecond between the event and your reaction that your entire freedom exists. In that sliver of time, you hold the power to choose who you are going to be. Do you become the creature of your impulses, or do you become the master of your faculty of judgment? By choosing to observe your emotions rather than inhabit them, you distance yourself from the drama. You look at your anger as if it were a weather pattern passing through a valley. It is real, it is present, but it is not you. By refusing to give the emotion the fuel of your participation, you effectively extinguish it. This is not the suppression of emotion, which is a fragile and unhealthy endeavor. This is the mastery of emotion through enlightened perspective. This practice extends into how you manage your long-term goals. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they are addicted to the initial thrill of a new pursuit. They love the beginning, they love the idea of the result, but they despise the middle, the long, unglamorous stretch of repetition, where no progress seems to be made. They crave the dopamine hit of the finish line, and when it doesn't arrive on command, they abandon the mission. To truly master your mind, you must learn to fall in love with the process itself, independent of the outcome. This is the ultimate expression of the dichotomy of control. You can control the input, the hours you work, the focus you maintain, the quality of your labor, but you cannot control the outcome, the recognition, the speed of success, the external results. When you detach your sense of self-worth from the outcome and anchor it firmly in the excellence of your process, you become invincible. You will work with a consistency that feels robotic to those around you, simply because you are no longer suffering from the anxiety of expectation. You are doing the work because the work is what you are here to do, and that is sufficient. This level of discipline requires a radical reassessment of your social environment. We are creatures of mimicry. We absorb the traits, the anxieties, and the low-level habits of those we spend the most time with. If your inner circle is dominated by people who are constantly reactive, constantly complaining, or constantly seeking external validation, you will find it nearly impossible to maintain your own internal fortress. You must become the guardian of your own mental ecosystem. This does not mean you must become a recluse, but it does mean you must become incredibly selective about what and who you allow to shape your worldview. Strategic solitude is not a luxury. It is a necessity for the growth of a strong mind. You need to spend time in the presence of your own thoughts, without the interference of digital noise or the opinions of others. In that space, You will find that you can hear yourself think with a clarity that was previously impossible. You will begin to identify the beliefs you have been carrying that were never yours to begin with. The values you adopted from your parents, your teachers, or your culture, and you will gain the authority to discard them if they do not serve your purpose. You are effectively pruning your mind, removing the dead wood so that the living parts can grow with renewed strength. As you move deeper into this, you will find that your relationship with fear changes entirely. Fear is typically a response to the perceived threat of losing something you value. You fear the loss of your job, the loss of your reputation, the loss of your comfort, or the loss of someone's affection. But when you have mastered your mind, you realize that you cannot lose what is truly yours: your integrity, your character, and your capacity for reason. These are the only things that possess true value. If you lose your wealth, you remain a person of character. If you lose your status, you remain a person of character. By shifting your values to these internal qualities, you become effectively unlosable. You enter into a state of ataraxia, a profound, untroubled tranquility that is not easily disturbed by the events of the world. This brings us back to the reality that this is a lifelong pursuit. Do not mistake this path for a destination you will eventually reach and then retire from. There is no point where you can declare that your mind is fully mastered and cease your vigilance. Life will always provide new challenges, new temptations, and new distractions. But the difference is that you will no longer be a victim of them. You will understand that the challenge is the point. You will understand that the difficulty is the curriculum. When you look back at your life, you will see that the moments of your greatest growth were never the moments of comfort. They were the moments where you were pushed to the edge, where you were forced to make a difficult choice, and where you had to stand alone in your conviction. You will realize that you were not struggling against the world. You were struggling against your own limitations, and in that struggle, you were forging a self that is capable of withstanding anything. You are now at a crossroads. You can return to the way you were, letting the world dictate your mood, your goals, and your worth. Or you can commit, here and now, to the life of the master of your own mind. It is a path that requires you to trade the cheap, shallow comforts of the masses for the hard, enduring peace of the sovereign. It is a path that asks everything of you, but in return, it gives you the only thing that truly matters: the ability to live your life on your own terms, completely unshakable, regardless of what the world throws at you. The storm may rage, the ground may tremble, and the crowds may scream, but inside, you will remain entirely at home, entirely in control, and entirely yourself. This is not the end of your education, but the beginning of your freedom. Your mind is no longer your master, it is your instrument, and you, finally, are ready to play.